victories with 2 defeats, 24 wins by way of knockout, hailing from Limerick, Ireland, introducing Andy
Lee. Andy, you can see me?
I can see it now.
You look real good.
Mickey, Rourke, thank you very much for joining us today. I know you've had a tough time. As you said, one of your dogs recently passed away, and I know how much the dogs mean to you. Like, when did that start?
This dog I had 21 years.
Tough.
I got to go pick up the dog's ashes today.
Yeah. Your dogs mean a lot to you, don't they?
They mean everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you get to a point in your life where you can count all your friends on one hand, and then my dog's on two hands.
Yeah, that is a little bit of a teaser clip for you there, a little bit of a flavour of what's to come. Andy Lee meets, very first episode of which he's going to be in conversation with the world-famous actor Mickey Rourke. That's coming your way, and all in association with the all-new Seat Leon, the brand's first fully connected car, and it'll be coming your way very soon. But it is after 7:30 now on a Thursday night, which means only one thing. It's time for John Giles.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. When you've done your hammer during PE with Joe, relax. The football's back. Gamble responsibly. See dunleary.net.
John, how are you doing? You're there?
I'm here, Adrian, yeah.
Good stuff. Good to chat with you. We obviously had you on only a couple of days back at another sad conversation in so many ways. It marked the passing of an English legend and an Irish icon, I suppose, in so many ways with Jack Charlton. And that conversation is there if people want to go back and have a listen to it. It's a desperately sad time for you, John. I was only thinking about it before we had the conversation that you've had a few mates and a few former colleagues pass away over the last couple of months. It's a very tough time for you. How are you?
I'm okay, Adrian. I'm still here anyway, and I'm terrified of this virus, as most people are. But I think when you get to my age, it makes a big difference. Strangely enough, like the three lads that passed away, pals, friends, fellow players, it was only Norman that got the virus. Trevor Cherry passed away as well, but Trevor had a heart attack apparently, which I was very surprised at because he was always a very fit lad. And of course, Jack hasn't been well for a while, Adrian, a good while. We had a big do at Christmas, the Freedom of the City from Leeds for all the lads who played at a certain time, and Jack couldn't make it. And that would be very unlike him. Whenever we had a meeting of the old players, our old pals, he'd be there, and he couldn't make that particular thing. So it's a very sad period, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I mean that group that you had together at Leeds at that time, John. Like there's a point in time, I suppose, when you think about it, when we consider the existentialism of everything, our place on the planet. I suppose everybody considers themselves to be infallible to some degree at some point in time, but it must be all the more the case for somebody like yourself and some of the names you've mentioned there who've reached the status they have at elite level sport in terms of physicality and mentality, and I don't know, does it make it all the tougher then when you see people of such fortitude mentally and physically pass away?
Well, you've seen them over a long period of time. But I think most of the lads, well, I certainly do consider myself lucky. I'm 79 now. Jack was, I think, 74, 75. Norman was 77. And we go back in time and you go to poor Billy Bremner, Billy died in his early 50s, which was a shock to us all because Billy was always the most energetic of us all, always messing about, kidding around and over the field, obviously a total dynamo, and that was the biggest shock to us all. I think when some of the lads pass away now, it's very sad, Adrian, but not surprising. We got together like most people at our age now. We didn't get together as often as we should have. We kept saying, "Oh yeah, we must do that, and like most people, the time flies by. And we did it. We got together. We got together at Christmas. Jack couldn't make that one. but he was at a signing in Birmingham last year with most of the Leeds lads. So we got together every so often, but not as many times as we should have.
And in terms of the relationships and that sort of stuff, John, that you would have had with those lads, you fit back into each other's company easy enough?
Very easily. I was there for 12 years and played with, like Jack was there, I played for 10 years with Jack and 12 years with Norman, a few with Trevor Cherry. And when you look back on it, Adrian, it's like being in the army together. All the things that you have to do, because you always have to depend on each other on the pitch. You know, if one or two of three guys are not doing it, then everybody suffers. But look, you know, if I played with a group of lads at Leeds, that none of them would give in. And we would play in those days behind the Iron Curtain, where the match wouldn't be televised and the referee would be robbing you, and the home team would be getting stuck into you, and you needed everybody to pull together and stick together, which we did. So we could trust each other. So when we'd meet up with each other, funny enough, a lot of people think you're going back on matches. I scored this goal, or you scored that goal. Never talk like that. It was about different things. How's the family? It was unspoken. The bond between all the players.
Yeah. And like I suppose, like you say, there is that thing in life where everybody says, "Well, we'll catch up at some point," and then it's difficult. But around times like this, John, are you in more contact then with some of the former teammates, or do you reach? I mean, it's tough, obviously, the current circumstances. But are you in contact with each other a little bit more now around times like this? Then?
Yeah, well, Eddie Gray would be my main contact at Leeds. Eddie still works at the club and that. And like, if I get an early morning call from Eddie, I dread it, Adrian, because Eddie brings the news. You know, Eddie's a great lad. So, like, it got the stage. He broke the news for Jack and Trevor Cherry, and you know, it was very, very, very sad. And it's not funny, but I do say to Eddie, ring me late on in the day and give me a chance, you know. But Eddie, you know, Eddie, Peter's not well. Peter Lorimer's not well. Mick Jones is okay. Alan Clark is okay. Paul Reaney is good. You know, most of the lads are okay. There's a few gone as we've been talking about there, Adrian. But there's still a few of us, and like, we couldn't go to Norman's funeral, as you know, with this virus situation. But I think what we'll do when everything calms down, we'll get together as a group in Leeds and see Susan, Norman's wife, and have a bit of a send off in that way.
Yeah. What are occasions like? I'm sure that'll be very somber, John. What does the conversation turn to on days like those, when you fall back into, as you said, your kind of army ways almost? That feeling.
It's not sad, Adrian. You know. Like, I'd say we'll talk about the times we had with Norman and some of the things he did, some of the funny things he did, and plenty with Big Jack of some of the things that Jack did, not so much with Trevor. But that's the way it usually goes. You know, it doesn't go. We might talk about matches that we played in a certain way, but it wouldn't be the time I scored a goal, or Norman, what you did. And ex-footballers, maybe don't talk that way, but they talk about the funny parts. You know, the funny times and the good times. Yeah. And players. Sure, we talk about ex-players as well. You know, and you definitely would get Mick Jones. The first words out of Mick Jones be, "What about the money the lads are earning today?" Mick always, "Oh, Mick, come on, our day is gone." And but Mick will always refer to that. That's one of the first things out of his mouth. But he's soon taken down on that.
A fly on the wall for those conversations, John. I'm sure about it. One word on Jack before we leave the general topic. It struck me over the last while, I think, like I mentioned at the top, about his iconic nature, I suppose, on this side of the water. It struck me from listening to some of the stories, John, about the humanity of the man, which I hadn't overly, the generosity and humanity of him, that I hadn't overly considered before until I heard the stories that had been told about him.
Now, Jack was what I would regard as a decent human being. No, I didn't always get on with Jack, especially over football. And Jack was older than our lads at our time, you know. And the thing about it was Jack wasn't always right, but he was never wrong. Jack was a stubborn bugger over anything. And You know, he wouldn't be flashing the money around either, Adrian, to be honest. But he was good company. But he was an honest guy. I got on very well with Jack. I consider Jack a very, very good friend, and I'm sure he considered me a very good friend. I wouldn't talk to him about football because we'd finish up in a row. So we kept away from that. But generally speaking, Jack was a good, solid, honest human being.
Yeah. And
nothing big-headed about him. Jack got on well with a lot of people. Jack was a great after-dinner speaker, Adrian.
Right.
Very funny and brilliant the way he did it. Now, anybody looking at Jack, you'd say, well, that's the last thing he'd be good at, you know. But he was very good. He's very good with people. He was very clever. He handled people really well. I mean, if you look at him doing the Irish job now, he was very successful. But he was great with people, and it was genuine with him. You know, him and Bobby were total opposites. If Jack went into a pub, he'd be up at the counter at the bar. He wouldn't be buying the drinks, but he'd be talking to everybody, having a laugh with them and that. If Bobby went into the same pub, he'd be sitting down in a corner, mostly on his own if he could, without mixing with anybody. But Bobby was a good character as well. I mean, Bobby was one of the great best player I ever played with, best player I ever played against. So they were chalk and cheese, Adrian, the two of them. But Jack was so outgoing; it was just unbelievable. That's why Irish people loved him. You know, if Jack was in Dublin and go into a bar, he'd be talking to everybody, no bother, or down the country or that. He was brilliant. He was brilliant with people.
Yeah, that great line when he came back from USA '94 that we ate a little and didn't drink very much, but we'll make up for that tonight or whatever it was. There was a clear charm about the man. He knew his audience, I suspect.
Oh, he was brilliant. Honestly, he was brilliant, and the journalists. He got on great with all the journalists. He was absolutely brilliant at that. Definitely, Adrian. He was really good, and like it wasn't all for show. I mean, he got on very well with ordinary people who were supporters at Leeds and particularly, I'd say particularly in Ireland. Although he was a long time at Leeds, I think he was 20 odd years at Leeds, Adrian. You know, and Jack was because when Don Revy took over, Jack played in a Leeds team that were mostly in the second division. And they had a lot of lads in there that weren't good pros, and Jack was one of them. And luckily enough, when Don actually played, you see, so he knew all the good lads and bad lads when he took over. And Jack got his warning from Don: if you don't book up, Jack, you're out. And he got a grip of himself. Jack really did, and became, you know, in my opinion, at least for 5 years, the best centre half in what was now the Premiership. But he really got a grip of himself. But I think he was 28, 29 when he was picked for England, Adrian.
Yeah. It's incredible, and the heights that he went on to achieve. John, I did want to take those few minutes to chat to you about that and to say to you that it's amazing the amount of comments that we have had in on the various platforms of people who are thinking about you, and to say how highly you're regarded in the country, and that it's worth saying to you on a national platform like this, and people are thinking about you, and
well, you're very good.
You're okay.
You'll have me crying in a few minutes, Adrian, to be honest.
No, well, listen, that's not the point of it, but certainly to say that people are thinking about you and hold you in high regard as well. So look, we've lots of football to talk about, as we always do on a Thursday night, and we'll do that in just a moment.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power. When you've done your hammer during PE with Joe, relax. The football's back. Gamble responsibly. See dunleary.net.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power. When you've done your hammer during PE with Joe, relax. The football's back. Gamble responsibly. See dunleary.net.
All right, you're very welcome back. It is Thursday, and as always, John Giles joins us on the line. We're going to get into some of the football now, and there's lots of it that we thought the season was done and dusted, certainly at the top end, John, but Liverpool have thrown up a pretty interesting storyline after last night, beaten by Arsenal, a couple of errors from two of their main players. The 100 points is gone, the unbeaten season is gone. Are you critical of all of that, John, or you give them a bit of a pass given the titles in the bag?
I give them a big pass, Adrian. I think once you do what they did at such an early stage, I think it's almost inevitable that it's happening what I would expect to happen. Because once you win the trophy and win the league, or any trophy, but particularly the league title, after a long run, it's usually the hardest to win, Adrian, and you've already won it. Then when you're going out for the next match, when you're going for the title, then every point counts, and you want to do it, and you're up for it, and they did it, and they did it early. In my opinion, or in my experience of records, they don't mean anything to the players. They really don't. I'm only going on my own experience. In 1969, we won the league, what would be the Premiership, and we'd two big records in it. We'd 67 points at the time, which was the biggest ever, and 2 defeats in 42 matches. Now, we didn't have as many matches as Liverpool have between now and the end of the season, but we had only one more match because we needed to draw at Liverpool to clinch it after neck and neck with Liverpool, and we'd one more match to play with Notts Forest, I remember, at Leeds, and we were terrible. We scraped home 1-0, but you see, when you're in the race and you win it, then after you play it, you can't contrive the emotion and the effort and what you have to give in the next matches. I mean, even outside the Liverpool players wouldn't even be conscious of it, Adrian. I don't think to be conscious going to always go out and take it easy day. Well, you can see by Klopp, he's raging about it. He doesn't want them to do it at all. But I'd say he'd be relatively easy on them because he'd know they're not doing it on purpose. It's just something that's there that needs to be done, and you go out and you do it, and you're nervous and all the various things that need to be done. That goes away, Nathan, because you can't kid yourself. You can't say, well, we haven't won it. We pretend that we haven't won it. And I'm not surprised. I'm not a bit surprised at the situation that they're in now.
And like almost in that way, then it's like an unconscious turning off, almost, John, is what you're saying. That the concentration levels slip.
That's what it is, Adrian. It is a turn off. Although you're not doing it on purpose. You're not thinking, "Oh, we've won it. We'll go." It's just that you can't. It's like a lion is chasing you, Nathan. You're going to run as fast as you can, and somebody tells you he's not chasing you anymore. You don't run as fast. Now, I'm only using that as a simple, but that's the way it is. I mean, nobody can tell those lads, "Come on now, we've got to win today. We want every point. We want to win the Premiership," and they've done it. They don't consciously switch off, Adrian.
On that note,
when you're in that race, the adrenaline's flowing. You're nervous before the match. You know you have to do it, and that's all. That's something that happens because that's the situation you're in. But when you're in the situation that you're in the last couple of few matches that Liverpool are on, it's not there. They've won it. They've got the trophy. End of story. They won't be bothered about the records. In my opinion, anyway, and only going on my experience, we needed, in those days, it was 2 points in the last match to beat the record, and we scraped home. But we weren't bothered about the record. That didn't G us up.
Given that Liverpool, let's call it whatever, lapse of concentration, and it'll be over a number of games because they've had the thing sewn up so early, how difficult will it be for them then to turn that back on again when they need to?
I don't think they'll turn it back on with the remaining matches that they have because it's not going to make any difference. Like even the record they could have, if there was any sense in that for them, that's gone. What Klopp will be thinking about now is next season, Adrian. That's what they'll be thinking. Get the season over. And now you've got something to play for again next season. But I found, even with Leeds, when we won it in '69, it was hard to get, even when the competitive matches started next season, Adrian, to get to the level of concentration and effort we had towards the end of the season. Do you know what I mean? Because now you've got a whole season to go at. Don't forget the main thing for Liverpool last year was they'd just been nicked for the title by Manchester City. So if you look at City's attitude starting the season, it wasn't the same as Liverpool's because Liverpool didn't do it. Now they have to do it. That's the way I see it anyway. So I think I would forget all about form for Liverpool until this season is over, and then I would expect them to start the next season to be back on the trail again.
Particularly from the two people who made the 2 errors given the quality that they've delivered over the last couple of years. It was maybe all the more incredible of it. But I'm sure, John, that Mikel Arteta was back in the Arsenal dressing room afterwards and saying, listen, I'm tackling the culture here. I've put Guendouzi out with to train on his own, and we've got a result against one of the best teams on the planet, lads. We've turned the corner here. Maybe doesn't tell the true story then from what you're saying. From an Arsenal perspective.
No, it's a different case for Arteta. I'm talking about a team that's won it and then they've gone asleep, half asleep. No, yeah. he's got a long way to go, a long way to go to get into Liverpool's position, Adrian. There's a lot to be done at Arsenal. Now, it was a great win for them last night, and he'll take it and be glad to take it because he's not interested in how Liverpool approach it. He's only interested in how his team approach it, and it's a big win because what he's trying his best to do now is to get in the top four, to progress, to get some progress with the club. But I think it'll take him going well another 2 years to compete with the Manchester Uniteds and the Manchester Cities and the Liverpools of this year. Adrian, he's a big job to do, but no harm. There's nothing wrong with winning, and it does lift the supporters. It lifts the team. It gives them confidence. So that was a big win for them last night, and it certainly meant more to them than losing did to Liverpool.
Okay. Arsenal fans are patient anyway, John. They've had to be over the years, so I'm sure that a couple of years would be just fine for them. We've Palace United coming up here shortly live. United obviously undone by Michael Obafemi on Monday night. I think it was a game that you were watching as well.
Yes.
That 2 points could be a massive swing for them now in the end of the season. Yeah,
it was a bad one. It was a bad one to lose. They played well. Actually, it was a very good match. Southampton were very good as well. But with Fernandes now improving them. And it looks like Pogba is going to sign a new contract, an extension on his contract, which means that he is, at last, committing himself to Manchester United. I mean, what's happened the last 2 years with Pogba hasn't been good for Manchester United because he always seemed to be looking out to go somewhere better. Now, that's what it looked like to me, whether it be Barcelona, Real Madrid, or Paris Saint-Germain. He wasn't committed, definitely wasn't committed to Manchester United. Now, I think with this virus situation has eliminated Barcelona and Madrid and Paris, in my opinion. So now he does have to buckle down and actually play for Manchester United because he hasn't really played for 2 years. So getting Pogba at his best would be a huge thing for Manchester United looking forward.
Could it end up being a good bit of business for them? Is there a way you see Pogba knuckling down in a way that, he spoke very impressively. It wasn't after the Southampton game, but the game before that, he spoke very impressively afterwards about hard work was the sort of main takeaway that I had from it. Is there a way back? Do you see this guy? I know you've been critical of him over the last while. Is there a way that this guy ends up earning a big place in the hearts of Manchester United fans and playing a big part for them over the coming 3 or 4 years?
Well, it's up to him, Nathan. I keep calling you Nathan. Excuse me, Adrian.
I've been called worse, John. It's all right.
Okay. Look, he's getting big money from Manchester United. And what I've seen over the last couple of years is that he has that deal done, and he's looking elsewhere to see if he can get a better deal. He hasn't been committed to Manchester United in a way that he should. Now he's in a situation because other clubs, whether it be Barcelona, Real Madrid, can't afford as much now as they did before this virus situation came in. So now it's sort of said in a crude way, he's stuck with Manchester United. Now he has to play. That's the best. That's the best he's going to do. Whereas before now he's looking around and where can I go? That's the impression I got with him. He's hardly played, Adrian. He's got to go down and play and commit himself like the rest of the lads have done. Now, whether he will do that or not, I don't know. But what I'm reading of his situation now and the way he's behaving, that's what it looks to me. In other words, yes, I will sign a contract. In my opinion, I've nowhere else to go, so I'm going to commit myself to Manchester United, which is outrageous, really, Adrian. Like he's been picking up probably $300,000 a week, and looking elsewhere. So. I'd say Pogba at his best, doing not his best, could be a plus for Manchester United.
Yeah, I'm sure he's looking around at the quality of the players that have suddenly emerged around him as well. Even Martial post-lockdown, and Fernandes obviously in midfield, and several young players coming through there. Maybe that's all sort of encouraging him to be...
I think that would be part of it. To be honest, I think he was looking around. I think that there were a lot of good players while he was there that he could have been making better had he been doing the job that he should have been doing, Adrian.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
He owes Manchester United a lot, and he's got to do it for them now.
Chelsea, suddenly when you look at them, and I know that teams directly below them have a couple of games in hand, but there's suddenly a bit of daylight between themselves and fourth and fifth, and like even despite the blips that they've had against Sheffield United and West Ham over the last few weeks, like Lampard probably gets to ride that out, gets a season under his belt in the Premier League where they've qualified for the Champions League, like an invaluable thing, and all seems that certainly at this minute anyway headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I think he's done a good job, and I think he will do a good job for Chelsea. You know, and some I hear him on the telly, he's very down to earth, he's very sensible in what he says. I think he's an awful lot of good players, Adrian, and I think he needs maybe two really top-class defenders to make a real team of Chelsea. And I know he's buying the centre forward as well, which I think he needs an outstanding goal scorer as well. But the midfield players, the midfield players he had are as good as any, and he's got young Gilmore to come on as well, who I think will really be the best midfield player in the Premiership in a year or two. So he's got an awful lot of good players, and I think it won't take much, in my opinion, with two or three players in the right positions, top class, to actually be challenging Manchester United and Manchester City and even Liverpool, at least challenging them. So I think he's done a good job so far, and if he gets the players in that I'm sure he knows, they'll take a bit of beating.
We started talking about Leeds, obviously, and the old days at Leeds. We better end by talking about them as well, John, because they're nearly back. They're a little bit of work to do, but certainly getting very close to it now at this stage. What would it mean to you to see Leeds United back in that sort of elite tier in that company?
I'd love to see them back, Adrian, for the supporters' point of view. You know, the support by the time I left at Leeds was terrific. You know, they were brilliant, and they've had bad times. But you can see that the support that's there. A lot of support still in Ireland, but all over the country. They sell out every week. You can't get season tickets or anything for them now. They are really, really enthusiastic, great supporters. A lot of them, some of them anyway. The older guys remember the old days, but I think their sons and whoever started watching Leeds at a certain time would be delighted to be back. A huge club, Adrian. I'd love to see them back. I've got a lot of friends in Leeds who are still follow the club in that, and I think it'd be great for the city for them to get up there. I hope so. Fingers crossed. Anyway,
they're getting there. Yeah. They should get it done at this stage. John, pleasure as always. Listen, look after yourself, and we'll talk to you again next Thursday.
Thanks, Adrian.
Thanks, mate. John Giles on the line as always on a Thursday night. Plenty to come. We mentioned that live commentary coming your way in just a little bit here on Off the Ball on this Thursday night. A reminder as well, by the way, that tomorrow at 1 o'clock we're going to be giving you another chance to win €2,000 it is this time in our Know Your Football quiz. It's a rollover jackpot tomorrow. Nobody was lucky enough to win last week's prize, so your chance to win the rollover 2,000 tomorrow. All you have to do is answer 15 football-related questions, some of them pretty easy, some of them pretty tough, it has to be said. And the money will be yours, or at least a share of it, depending on how many people end up with that top prize. So you can register if you head along to quiz.otbsports.com, quiz.otbsports.com, and simply log in at any time before midday tomorrow, and you will be good to go. Know Your Football, brought to you in association with Paddy Power. Check out paddypower.com for their offers, and always gamble responsibly. Visit dunlewy.net for more information. That's it for now.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power. When you've done your hammer during PE with Joe, relax. The football's back. Gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.